Chapter 617, Ministers and the Seven Departments of the Gods. After statistics were compiled, aside from the few mysteries that Lin Chia had directly eliminated in the prison, all the remaining ones had joined the ranks of the caregivers, bringing the total number to 297. This meant that the current Divine Mental Hospital had a total of 297 official caregivers. Looking at the noisy group of caregivers in the yard, Lin Chia suddenly felt a headache coming on. Where was he supposed to accommodate such a large group of people? When there were only 6 or 7 caregivers, the small dormitories on the first floor of the hospital were sufficient. But now, with nearly 300 more caregivers all at once, he couldn't possibly let them all sleep in the yard, could he? Although he didn't consider himself a particularly conscientious boss, he still couldn't bring himself to let his employees sleep outdoors. Just as Lin Chia was pondering this, the Divine Mental Hospital beneath his feet suddenly shook violently. Lin Chia was taken aback and quickly turned his head to look in a certain direction. At the edge of the hospital, an area that had been shrouded in walls and mist suddenly twisted violently, with the mist retreating frantically, revealing a large stretch of ground. At the same time, a towering building rose from the ground. This sudden change startled the new caregivers in the yard, fear and worry appearing in their eyes. Having just emerged from their cells, they instinctively resisted and distrusted this unfamiliar environment. Roars of bears, chirps of birds, barks of dogs, and various other animal sounds mixed together, creating a cacophony that hurt the ears. Lin Chia frowned, about to say something, when a thunderous sound erupted from behind him. Boom! A blinding light mixed with a fierce aura surged out from room 4. The ancient ape draped in a cassock sat still like a stone statue, its furnace-like brilliant eyes now wide open. Its brow was tightly furrowed, seemingly quite displeased. "Shut up!" The roar of the fierce ape erupted from its mouth, and the rolling divine power once again overwhelmed all the caregivers in the yard, knocking them to the ground. This thunderous voice drowned out all the animal sounds, causing the 290 new caregivers to kneel on the ground, an endless fear surging in their hearts, their minds shaken. Why was there another divine presence? First, there was the beautiful woman draped in starry robes, and now a fierce ape with golden eyes. Gods they had never dared to imagine appearing in their dreams were now showing up one after another. What kind of place was this? After the fierce ape's roar ended, the entire hospital fell silent. It seemed to have vented its anger, the golden light in its eyes gradually dimming, and it slowly closed its eyes, once again becoming a statue. Truly worthy of being the great sage. Seeing that all the caregivers dared not move, Lin Chia couldn't help but feel a sense of admiration. He turned to look beside him. The towering building had already been completed. It had 7 floors with a dozen rooms on each floor, and each room had 4 beds. An employee dormitory. Lin Chia was stunned for a few seconds before accepting the fact that the hospital had automatically constructed an employee dormitory. He looked down at the ground beneath his feet, his expression somewhat complex. As expected, as Nick said, this hospital is alive. He had just received over 200 caregivers, and it had automatically built a dormitory. If he said this hospital had no consciousness, even Lin Chia himself wouldn't believe it. However, during this time he had also tried to communicate with the hospital, but it had not responded at all. He didn't know if it was because his method of communication was wrong or if the hospital simply didn't want to acknowledge him. Lin Chia shook his head, temporarily putting these chaotic thoughts aside, and his gaze returned to the new caregivers who were still prostrating on the ground. Now that there was a place to stay, how was he supposed to manage so many people? After pondering for a moment, Lin Chia had an idea. Li Yifei a zhu mo fong bail yi wang kai. Lin Chia called over a few old cadres who were standing not far away. Among them, Wang Kai was the name Lin Chia had given to the little Haba dog. Given Lin Chia's naming skills, finding such a name was already quite impressive. Fortunately, the dog itself didn't seem to mind the name and even wanted to stand up in a tuxedo to applaud Lin Chia. Lin Chia once again cast a summoning spell in the hospital, calling back the outsiders Hong Yen and Hei Tong. The 7 of them stood in a row. These 7 caregivers were Lin Chia's original team and had been with him the longest. They were absolute veterans. From now on, each of you will lead a group of the new caregivers and establish different departments, serving as heads to systematically manage the various affairs of the Divine Mental Hospital. Li Yifei will oversee the General Affairs Department, responsible for coordinating the work of the other departments. Zhu will manage the dining department, responsible for the meals throughout the hospital. Mo Fong will oversee the Internal Affairs Department, responsible for laundry, drying, changing bed linens and other internal tasks. Hong Yan will manage the Security Department, responsible for the hospital's safety and defense, although it may not be entirely necessary. Bail Yi will oversee the Agricultural Department, responsible for planting and maintaining the greenery and crops within the hospital. Wang Kai will manage the Cleaning Department, responsible for all sanitation in the hospital. He Tong will oversee the Inspection Department, responsible for identifying and resolving potential issues within the hospital and reporting them to me immediately. Lin Chia looked at the group. Do you all understand? 5 of them nodded while only Hong Yan looked confused. Wang Kai suddenly stood up from the ground, excitedly barking once, though it was unclear if he understood. Li Yifei, you help me take good care of them. Lin Chia walked over to Li Yifei with a helpless expression and patted his shoulder. From now on, you are the true chief steward. Don't worry, Chia, I promise to manage them well. Li Yifei grinned. It must be said that Li Yifei was quite capable. He led the other 6 department heads to the yard below, conducting secondary interviews with the new caregivers in batches, assigning them to different departments based on their backgrounds, races, preferences and personalities. They also planned several training sessions for the caregivers, with He Tong serving as the instructor to instill the correct values in these new caregivers. As for why it was He Tong, Li Yifei felt that this guy had a natural talent for multi-level marketing. Mei Lin sat in the rocking chair in the study, holding a steaming thermos, smiling as she watched the lively yard below, stroking the few remaining hairs on her head and sighed. Youth is truly wonderful. Starry night. Sitting alone on the hillside, Lin Chia opened his eyes to see the petite girl in a black sakura kimono quietly stepping out of the container, walking straight towards him. Where are your subordinates? Yuzina asked, noticing that the 2 people beside Lin Chia had disappeared. They went back to work, Lin Chia replied. Why aren't you sleeping? Yuzina silently sat down beside him, hugging her knees and looking up at the starry sky above. Her eyes reflected the stars and after a moment of silence she said, I can't sleep. Chapter 618. Asanaji Nanaya. Still thinking about your father's situation? Yeah. Yuzuriha nodded. Over the years I've never had a good impression of him. Plus, I thought he was hiding because he owed money which caused me and Grandma Tsuru to be displaced, making me resent him even more. But this time I suddenly realized that he seems to be different from what I understood. Debt being wanted, searches by the underworld and pursuits by the law. Perhaps the truth behind this matter is not as simple as I thought. Lin Chia nodded in agreement. So, what do you plan to do? Go to Osaka. A determined glint appeared in Yuzuriha's eyes. No matter what, I want to retrieve his belongings and see him one last time. Maybe I can understand a bit about his past. All right. Lin Chia asked again, what about Grandma Tsuru? Is she okay with you going? I've had a good talk with her. Although she was reluctant to let me take risks, I insisted and eventually she gave up trying to persuade me and just told me to be careful on the road. Yuzuriha continued. I've already arranged a nursing home for Grandma Tsuru, and the payment is all settled. Someone will come to pick her up tomorrow. A nursing home? Lin Chia was taken aback. When did you arrange that? Yuzuriha lowered her head and fell silent for a moment. The day before I attempted suicide. You had already thought about what to do after your suicide? This time it was Lin Chia who was surprised. I always thought you acted impulsively. Yuzuriha shook her head. During that time those thugs were crazily searching for me. Our home was destroyed and they were waiting at intersections to block me. If it were just me I wouldn't be afraid of them, but Grandma Tsuru is old. She got involved. It would be even worse than if I died myself. But I knew that if this continued I would eventually be found by them. I didn't want to drag Grandma Tsuru down with me, so I used all the savings at home to arrange a nursing home for her, enough for her to live there for a long time, leaving only 20,000 yen for emergencies. As long as I died, those thugs would stop chasing me, and they wouldn't find Grandma Tsuru, allowing her to escape. Lin Chia pondered. So, the call you made to the police before your suicide was intended to let them announce your death while retrieving your body, so that those thugs would know and give up, while also preventing Grandma Tsuru from finding your body and alerting the thugs to her existence? Yeah. Lin Chia turned his head and carefully examined the girl who was only 12 or 13 years old, his eyes filled with shock. Such a method could really be thought of by a child? It would be a pity if a child like you died. Lin Chia shook his head. Maybe Lord Dako couldn't think so too? That's why he sent you to save me. A radiant smile appeared on Yuzuriha's face. I don't believe in any gods. Lin Chia said, I only trust my own blade. Saying that here could get you arrested, you know? They can't catch me. Yuzuriha looked up, meeting Lin Chia's eyes. What's wrong? Brother, you're not really from here, are you? Lin Chia was somewhat surprised. Why do you think that? This is the first time I've seen someone drift over from the sea, and your way of thinking is different from ours. It feels like you're from another world. Yuzuriha added, and your two subordinates clearly aren't normal people. Lin Chia raised an eyebrow. Maybe. So, are you going to report me to the police? You might get a nice reward. You are the messenger sent by the god to save me. How could I report you? Yuzuriha said seriously. Besides, I can feel that you're a good person and won't harm me. Lin Chia smiled helplessly. You should go back and get some sleep. Tomorrow morning we head to Osaka. The next morning, Yuzuriha sent Grandma Tsuru off to the nursing home. Previously, Yuzuriha had used all her savings to arrange a 5-year package for Grandma Tsuru at the nursing home, but now that the crisis was over, once she returned from Osaka, she could get a refund for that payment, only needing to cover the care fees for these few days. When she returned from Osaka to pick up Grandma Tsuru and get the refund, along with the money Lin Chia gave them, it would be enough to secure a place for them in another small city's suburbs, allowing everything to start anew. Yuzuriha had already calculated this in her mind. After settling Grandma Tsuru, she followed Lin Chia onto the Shinkansen heading to Osaka. The advantage of the Shinkansen is that it doesn't require any identification. As long as you buy a ticket, you can board and leave at any time. Even Lin Chia could openly ride the Shinkansen comfortably to Osaka, as riding a motorcycle all the way there would be quite tiring. Sitting by the window, Yuzuriha curiously gazed at the scenery rushing by outside. It was her first time taking the Shinkansen away from Yokohama, and she couldn't help but feel a bit excited. By the way, Yuzuriha seemed to remember something and turned to Lin Chia. Brother, you don't have a Japanese name yet, do you? It would be inconvenient for many things without a name. Lin Chia nodded. Indeed, up until now he hadn't given himself a pseudonym. If they encountered trouble in Osaka, thinking of a name on the spot might be too late. How about I give you one? Yuzuriha's eyes lit up. What is your real name? Lin Chia. Chia-ha. Yuzuriha thought for a moment. For your surname, how about Asaba? I always thought that surname sounds nice. Asaba Chia? Lin Chia nodded slightly. Sounds good. He wasn't very familiar with Japanese surnames and didn't want to dwell too much on the issue. After all, it was just a pseudonym. As long as it didn't sound strange when he said it, that was enough. After about 2 hours, the train finally arrived at Osaka Station. Lin Chia, wearing a mask and hat, deliberately avoided the surveillance as he walked out of the station. From the outside, Osaka didn't seem much different from Yokohama, with towering modern skyscrapers everywhere. Only from a high vantage point could one see some traditional Japanese architecture in the distance, but Lin Chia wasn't interested in that. After all, he wasn't a tourist. Let's go straight to the police station, Lin Chia said to Yuzuriha. About half an hour later, the two arrived at the entrance of the Osaka police station. Hello, how can I help you? Upon entering the police station's lobby, a female officer with a strong Kansai accent respectfully asked. I'm here to collect belongings. Lin Chia pointed to Yuzuriha beside him. The belongings of the wanted criminal, Yuzuriha Kurotetsu. Chapter 619, Relics. The moment those words were spoken, the surrounding environment fell silent. The police officers who had been passing by Lin Chia and the others slightly turned their heads, secretly sizing up Yuzuriha Rinai, then whispered something to their companions. The female officer paused for a moment, then immediately opened the notebook in her hand and handed it to Yuzuriha Rinai. Please write down your name, ID number and contact information here, and also register any accompanying personnel. After Yuzuriha Rinai filled in her information, Lin Chia took the notebook, wrote down the name, Asaba Nanaya, and casually made up an ID number and contact information. The female officer glanced at the notebook, put it away, and then led the two into the police station. "Please follow me." The two followed the female officer through several long corridors until they arrived at a narrow room. Inside the room, several metal racks were neatly arranged, each holding various strange items. Belts, necklaces, mobile phones, earrings. Each shelf had its own code and the name of its original owner attached. The female officer compared the codes on the documents and walked to one of the racks, taking out a basket and handing it to Yuzuriha Rinai. "These are the belongings of Yuzuriha Kurotetsu. Please take a look. If there are no other issues, please sign here and then you can go next door to collect his ashes." Lin Chia's gaze swept over the basket. The items inside were quite simple and very common. A lighter, a ring, a broken mobile phone that was barely recognizable, and a wallet. "Is that all?" Lin Chia asked. "Yes, these are all the items found on him." Yuzuriha Rinai's gaze lingered on the 4 items, pausing for a moment on the ring, a complex expression appearing in her eyes. This ring was the same as the one her mother wore. It was their wedding ring. "I understand." After signing the handover document and putting away the 4 items, Yuzuriha Rinai walked straight into the next room. Suddenly, as if recalling something, she stopped. "By the way, may I ask?" Yuzuriha Rinai turned to the female officer and spoke softly. "Why was he listed as a wanted criminal and how was he captured?" The female officer was taken aback, hesitated for a moment, then spoke. "The reason he became a wanted criminal is confidential and cannot be disclosed, but he was personally killed by the Oracle Envoy. Our police are only responsible for the cleanup." "Oracle Envoy?" Lin Chia's eyes narrowed slightly. Upon hearing this response, Yuzuriha Rinai pressed her lips together, nodded, and walked into the next room. A few minutes later, she emerged holding a jar of ashes. "Let's go," Yuzuriha Rinai said to Lin Chia. The two left the police station with a few belongings and the urn, looking at the towering buildings and the flowing traffic outside. Yuzuriha Rinai felt a sense of loss. "What's wrong?" Lin Chia asked. "Nothing." Yuzuriha Rinai shook her head while holding the urn. "In the end, I still haven't figured out the truth of the matter." Lin Chia sighed deeply. This outcome was within his expectations. Akamori Haruhiko had told Lin Chia that a fierce ghost-level wanted criminal was beyond what the police could handle, and such cases were generally taken over directly by the Oracle Envoy. The police station might not necessarily know the details of such high-level cases, and even if they did, they couldn't disclose them. After some time of adaptation, Lin Chia had basically figured out the situation in this country. On the surface, this country had police, organized crime, fugitives, and a large number of ordinary citizens, while the Pure Land seemed to exist beyond the mundane world, only intervening to assist with births and numbering newborns, seemingly not getting involved in any other matters. At first, Lin Chia thought the Pure Land should be on the side of the police, maintaining social order, but it now appeared otherwise. Rather than being a ruler, its existence resembled that of a monitor, quietly hovering above the country, indifferently observing everything. It only intervened when there were existences that exceeded the worldly response range, such as wanted criminals above the fierce ghost level like Akamori Haruhiko. Only then would it send an Oracle Envoy to intervene. The most direct evidence was that the Pure Land clearly had the ID numbers of every person in the country and could monitor individual vital signs and locations through these numbers, yet it did not share this information with the police. Otherwise, so many wanted criminals would surely not escape. The existence of organized crime was similar. If the Pure Land truly intended to eradicate organized crime, it could simply send an Oracle Envoy to eliminate the so-called earthly double killers and black killers, but they had not done so. It seemed they were deliberately simulating a normal social environment. Lin Chia did not know what the Pure Land's true purpose was. The information he had was still too limited. Perhaps not knowing anything is a good thing. Lin Chia said to comfort her, glancing at the time. "Let's go eat first. You can take the Shinkansen back this afternoon." Yuzuriha Rinai sighed deeply. "Is there anything you want to eat?" "It's on me." Yuzuriha Rinai's downcast expression brightened slightly. After thinking for a moment, she said, "Let's go to Dotonbori?" I heard there's a Kobe beef place that's supposed to be really good. Dotonbori is Osaka's most famous center for food, drink, and entertainment. Many years ago it was a gathering place for various theaters, but now it has transformed into a bustling pedestrian street filled with shops, very popular. Yuzuru Haranai had heard about it before, and since she was rarely in Osaka, she certainly wouldn't miss this opportunity. Sure. Lin Chia, unfamiliar with the area, had no objections. Lin Chia and Yuzuru Haranai walked to the roadside, hailed a taxi and headed straight for Dotonbori. Mr. Jing, they have left the police station. At the entrance of the police station, a man wrapped in a black coat inside an inconspicuous black sedan picked up the intercom and said, "How many people?" "One is Yuzuruha Kurotetsu's daughter, and the other is a young man." "What's the identity of that man? Have you found out?" "He left the name Asaba Nanaya at the police station's inquiry desk. We are currently checking his background based on the ID number. We should have results soon." On the other end of the line, Mr. Jing was silent for a few seconds. "Follow them." "Understood." After the taxi merged into the traffic, the black sedan suddenly started. At the same time, dozens of different cars scattered along the streets also started, quickly merging into the traffic and following behind the taxi. Inside the taxi, sitting in the back seat, Lin Chia seemed to sense something, his eyes narrowing slightly. Chapter 620. The Advancing Mummy. What's wrong? Yuzuru Haranai asked, a bit puzzled as she noticed Lin Chia's expression change slightly. "Someone is following us," Lin Chia replied, glancing at the road behind them through the rearview mirror. He added, "A lot of people and they have guns." Lin Chia's mental energy had already covered the entire street. He sensed something was off when a dozen cars merged into the lane behind them. After a careful search, he discovered a large number of firearms among those vehicles. The origins of this group were certainly not simple, and it was highly likely they were after Yuzuru Haranai. Upon hearing there were guns, Ranai furrowed her brows tightly. She leaned closer to Lin Chia and whispered, "Is it that gang?" "Very likely. How did they know we were here? Aren't those thugs already?" Lin Chia's mind raced, quickly piecing together a possible scenario, and his expression darkened. Who would have thought that this gang actually has connections with the police? Ranai was taken aback, and her sharp mind immediately grasped Lin Chia's implication. "You mean the Osaka police station set me up to collect the belongings as bait?" "It seems that this gang has prepared for both options," Lin Chia calmly analyzed. "Since they are a powerful gang, they wouldn't bet everything on those low-level thugs. Starting from the day after Yuzuruha Heisei was killed, they used their connections with the police station to call your home, using the belongings as bait to lure you to Osaka, leading you into a trap. But they didn't expect those foolish thugs to drive you out of your home in search of what they wanted, which meant you never received that call. It wasn't until we returned to your house that we learned about this. So, in the end, we still walked into their trap?" Ranai asked, a bit worried. "What do we do now?" Lin Chia fell into deep thought. At this moment he couldn't use the Forbidden Ruins. The best plan would be to summon Hong Yen and escape, but simply running away wouldn't solve the problem. Since this gang had connections in both the underworld and the legitimate world, they would eventually find Ranai again through various means. By then she would be facing more than just a group of thugs. It would be one of the largest Yakuza families in Japan. Their biggest problem now was that they lacked information. Why were these gangsters after Ranai? What exactly did Yuzuruha Heisei leave her? They were completely in the dark. Perhaps this was an opportunity for them. As long as they could capture a few alive, they could further understand the truth of the matter. Lin Chia quickly made a decision in his mind. He turned to look back, and on the wide street, the dozen or so cars loaded with heavy weapons were trailing behind them, maintaining a distance to avoid exposure while ensuring the taxi remained in their line of sight. It looked quite professional. "Unfortunately, you have already exposed yourselves," Lin Chia thought to himself. He took out chalk from his pocket and quickly began drawing on the taxi's roof. "Hey, wait a minute. What are you doing? This is a taxi, you can't draw on it." The taxi driver exclaimed in surprise at Lin Chia's actions. Lin Chia glanced at him and tossed 80,000 yen onto the passenger seat. "Shut up and drive." "Sure, please go ahead." The taxi driver smiled politely. As Lin Chia drew the magic circle, he kept an eye on the dozen cars behind them, his eyes narrowing slightly. Are there any streets nearby with less traffic? The driver paused for a moment. Yes, if you turn right at the next 2 streets and then left, you'll reach Yamazaki Bridge. The lanes there are quite wide, but due to poor road planning, very few cars use that route. Drive there. Aren't you going to Dotonbori? That's in the opposite direction. I changed my destination. Okay. The gang's vehicles had not realized that Lin Chia had discovered them and continued to follow slowly. After passing 2 streets, they all drove onto Yamazaki Bridge. At this point, Lin Chia had finished the last stroke of the second magic circle. On the taxi's roof, 2 complex magic circles overlapped, with intricate lines that dazzled the eyes. Rinai curiously examined these mysterious patterns, not understanding what Lin Chia was planning. No matter what happens in a moment, keep driving forward, floor the gas, don't stop and don't look back, understood? Lin Chia instructed the driver. The taxi driver looked a bit confused. Sir, there's a speed limit on this bridge. Flooring the gas will get you fined. Lin Chia took out the last 30,000 yen from his pocket and pressed it into the driver's hand. Get us across this bridge at full speed and drop her off at the entrance to Dotonbori. Got it. The driver nodded decisively. Lin Chia turned back and reminded Rinai, take care of yourself. After saying that, he slammed both hands down on the 2 magic circles on the roof and quickly opened the door, floating out like a ghost. Boom. 2 blinding beams of magical light erupted from the top of the taxi. The dozen or so cars following the taxi onto Yamazaki Bridge instinctively hit the brakes, their occupants frozen in place at the sight. He jumped out. Mister, they seem to have discovered us. That young man has jumped out of the car. Someone in one of the vehicles reported the situation in real time. Don't worry about him, go after the girl. Understood. The deep roar of engines echoed on the bridge as these vehicles accelerated. Now that they knew they had been exposed, they no longer had any intention of hiding. Each of these vehicles had been violently modified, and they began to speed recklessly across the bridge. At that moment, a small, skinny mummy stood up in the middle of the road, looking bewildered. Hey! It tilted its head in confusion at the dozen cars rushing toward it. Mumu. What is that? The leading car's occupant squinted. A doll? How does it seem to be moving? Forget it, just run it over. Virum. The deep engine roared again. The car charged toward Mumu at an astonishing speed. Mumu, blow them up, Lin Chia's voice echoed in its ears. Mumu instantly perked up. After a grunt, its entire body swelled and a massive rocket launcher emerged from its tiny frame, resting on its shoulder, the barrel aimed at the speeding car. The gang members inside the car widened their eyes in shock, their expressions turning ghostly. Chapter 621, Wood Firepower Fortress. A rocket propelled by a long tail flame gracefully traced a trajectory through the air before crashing into the lead vehicle. Boom! A surge of flames erupted suddenly. The rolling heat wave and the shockwave from the explosion sent 2 nearby cars flying, thick smoke billowed up from the bridge, and fierce flames blazed from within the vehicle, transforming it into a fireball that lay across the road. Standing at the edge of the bridge, playing a game of red light, green light, with that mysterious gaze, Lin Chia couldn't help but smile slightly at the scene. It seemed he had guessed correctly this time. Unlike the mystery of the black-eyed beauty who had been committed to a mental hospital, Mumu was not a mystery of this world but a being summoned from another dimension. In terms of life forms, it was different from the caregivers, and its power did not originate from the Forbidden Ruins. This meant that even if Mumu exerted all its strength here, that mysterious gaze would not focus on it, as Mumu's power was completely outside the other party's monitoring range. Mumu was unaffected by the rules of this place. This also meant that the ancient tree demon could avoid the mysterious gaze and unleash all its power here. Dimensional summoning was the true path. Praise the god of magic. Praise Merlin. All the underworld vehicles following that car were startled by the sudden explosion, but at their current speed, it was too late to brake. They could only continue to slam into the mummy. Get your weapons. Take that thing down, one of the underworld members shouted. The sunroofs of the cars opened simultaneously, and armed underworld members stood up, pulling triggers as blinding tongues of fire erupted. Bullets surged toward Mumu. However, when these bullets hit Mumu, it was as if they struck steel, sparking a few glimmers before being deflected entirely, causing no harm whatsoever. Mumu tilted its head, its body swelling like a balloon, and the bandages on it expanded again with gun barrels extending from within. Submachine guns, rifles, sniper rifles, flamethrowers, grenade launchers. In just a moment, it transformed into a 3-meter-tall fortress of firepower. All the underworld members gaped in shock, their eyes nearly popping out. They couldn't comprehend. What the hell was that thing? Not just them. The taxi driver who had just passed Mumu and the passenger Yuzuna were equally stunned, their jaws nearly dislocated. The driver looked through the rearview mirror and saw the massive war mummy blocking the center of the bridge. He rubbed his eyes vigorously and even slapped himself to confirm he wasn't dreaming, then gasped in shock. What the hell, has this world gone mad? Without a second thought, he slammed the accelerator to the floor, completely disregarding any thoughts of speeding, his mind focused solely on one idea. Get the hell out of this dangerous place. In the back seat, Yuzuna leaned over, her eyes fixed on the chaotic battlefield behind, feeling a bit worried. Would Brother Chia be okay facing so many people alone? Tat 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 tat. The gun barrels on Mumu erupted with blinding flashes, bullets pouring out like a tide. It was like a fully armed mobile armory with every kind of heavy weapon the underworld members had ever seen appearing on it. These bullets easily covered the entire bridge, and all the underworld members standing up through the sunroofs were shot dead almost simultaneously. Several cars had their fuel tanks pierced, exploding on the spot and turning into burning scrap metal. Die, you bastards! One car charged through the barrage, the driver ducking down, narrowly avoiding the bullets, flooring the accelerator as it crashed into the firepower fortress. Boom! The vehicle collided with the enlarged Mumu as if it had hit a steel bunker, the car crumpling under the terrifying kinetic energy before exploding. The bandages on Mumu's surface showed some scorch marks, but they quickly returned to normal. Mumu looked down at the car that had turned into a fireball, seemingly puzzled, unable to understand where this little thing got the courage to crash into it. A truck would have been more reasonable. Mumu, you can stop now, they're about to be wiped out, Lin Chia's voice echoed in Mumu's ears. At the moment he heard this, the gun barrels on Mumu ceased fire, wisps of white smoke drifting from the muzzles. Its massive form deflated like a deflated balloon, shrinking back down to the size of a doll in the blink of an eye. It turned its head, excitedly opening its arms toward Lin Chia, who was walking over as if asking for a hug. Lin Chia smiled helplessly, picked it up from the ground, patted its head and then set it back down. Wait until I finish my business. Mumu pouted, sighed, seemingly dissatisfied with Lin Chia's nonchalance. Lin Chia, holding the black box in both hands, calmly turned to look at the bridge, which had nearly turned into a sea of flames. Most of the vehicles had been directly bombarded by Mumu, and the underworld members inside had not survived. However, a few cars were fortunate enough to have only blown out their tires, crashing into the bridge's guardrail with the underworld members still alive inside. They got out of the cars, wielding machetes and firearms, their eyes filled with terror as they looked at the mummy. Mr. Jing. Save us. From behind one car, an underworld member crouched beside a tire, holding a walkie-talkie, speaking frantically. A monster appeared in the middle of the road just now. It's covered in guns, and almost all the brothers who tracked it here have been wiped out. Monster. The voice on the walkie-talkie sounded surprised. Is it the Huajin Blade Master? It seems a bit like it, the underworld member paused. That monster has a person standing next to it. It's the young man who jumped out of the car earlier. He might be the Blade Master. A human accompanied by a monster? On the other end of the walkie-talkie, Mr. Jing pondered. It certainly sounded like a Huajin Blade Master accompanied by a blade spirit, annihilating the entire convoy. But the problem was, among the 9 Huajin blades, there didn't seem to be one with the ability to use firearms. Hold on a bit longer, I'll ask the family head to intervene. After saying this, Mr. Jing fell silent. The underworld member put away the walkie-talkie, gritted his teeth, stood up from the ground, disengaged the safety on his handgun, aimed at Lin Chia and pulled the trigger. Bang! A gunshot rang out. Lin Chia tilted his head slightly, easily dodging the bullet, his gaze drifting lightly to the underworld member who had fired. His fingertips gently pressed on the black box in his hands. 2 straight blades shot out from within, Chapter 622, Han Chuan Si. Since obtaining the White Slayer, Lin Chia rarely used the two standard Night Watchman straight swords, only employing them as a medium when using reverse summoning magic. However, in this situation, reverse summoning magic was also unavailable, and now Lin Chia had a more flexible alternative in Night Flicker. But now that the White Slayer was broken, Lin Chia had no choice but to revert to using these two straight swords. Fighting unarmed was not his style. "Kill the sword master first," shouted a member of the gang. The surviving 10 or so gang members simultaneously raised their hands, aiming at Lin Chia and pulling the triggers. A barrage of bullets flew from the gun muzzles, heading straight for Lin Chia's body. Lin Chia narrowed his eyes, gripping the dual swords, his figure darting like a specter between the bullets. At his current speed, conventional firearm bullets couldn't hit him at all. The gang members felt a blur before their eyes. The target they had aimed at had suddenly appeared before them. 2 flashes of blade light passed, and the firearms in their hands were severed into 2 pieces of scrap metal. At the same time, a line of crimson blood appeared across their necks. They felt their vision darken and lost consciousness completely. As Lin Chia moved, the number of gang members standing on the bridge dwindled. By the time only 3 remained, Lin Chia merely severed their firearms and kicked them aside, sending them crashing against the bridge edge, dazed and confused. Dozens of abandoned cars burned on the bridge, turning into fireballs, while thick black smoke billowed into the sky. In the distance, the sound of police sirens rose and fell, rapidly approaching. With such a commotion on Yamazaki Bridge, the police naturally would not remain unresponsive, but by the time they arrived, everything would be over. Lin Chia sheathed the 2 straight swords into the black box and calmly walked to the bridge's edge, glancing at the police cars speeding down the street below. He casually picked up a subdued gang member. "I ask you answer. Bastard. Don't get too arrogant." "We won't." Crack. A crisp sound came from his neck, his head tilted, and his eyes glazed over as Lin Chia dropped him to the ground. He approached the second gang member and spoke again. "I ask you answer." Somewhere in Osaka. Mr. held a walkie-talkie, walking through a brightly lit modern corridor. A faint heavy metal sound echoed from the end of the corridor, where neon characters illuminated the walls with several large words. Ghostfire Gert. This was one of the most famous nightclubs in Osaka and a property under the influence of the powerful Kansai gang, the Ghostfire Society. Mr. reached the entrance of a luxurious private room at the end of the corridor, gently knocked on the door and then walked in. As soon as he pushed the door open, a strong smell of blood assaulted him. Inside the modern private room, blood pooled like an ocean on the floor, and 5 or 6 corpses lay on the spacious, comfortable sofa, each with a gruesome knife wound on their necks. These individuals were all executives of the Ghostfire Society. Beside the corpses sat a middle-aged man calmly, his left arm draped over the already cold body of the Ghostfire Society's president, Takuya Ishizuka. In his right hand he gently swirled a glass of champagne, the fine bubbles rising in the liquid, emitting a mesmerizing glow under the colorful lights of the room. He raised his glass, took a small sip, and his indifferent gaze fell on Mr., who had just entered. "What is it?" "Young master, the people we sent to pursue Yuzuriha now have encountered trouble," Mr. said respectfully. "It seems a Wazutsuki sword master intervened, intercepting them all on Yamazaki Bridge, and they are still engaged in battle." "Wazutsuki sword master?" The middle-aged man's brow furrowed slightly. "Is it Haruki Amamiya?" "No, it wasn't raining at the scene, and we received information from the Osaka police that his name is Shallow Feather Chiya. However, the number and contact information he left are fake. We couldn't find anyone by that name. Besides Haruki Amamiya, there's someone else targeting the Yuzuriha family." The middle-aged man's eyes narrowed, seemingly deep in thought. "Has the descendant of the Yuzuriha family left the bridge?" "They have left, but their whereabouts are currently unknown." The middle-aged man slowly set down his champagne. "I'll go meet him. You take over the Ghostfire Society. You know what to do, right? Take over all their properties in Osaka as our family's temporary stronghold. Use whatever the lower-ranking members of the Ghostfire Society can be utilized, and eliminate those that can't. Additionally, continue to absorb the surrounding small gangs and prepare for a hard confrontation with the Black Kill Group." Mr. seemed to have everything planned out. The middle-aged man nodded. Just as he was about to rise from the sofa, Mr. S. walkie-talkie suddenly lit up. A faint crackling sound emerged and a young man's voice came through. "Hello." Mr. frowned and looked at the middle-aged man, whose brow slightly raised in surprise. After a long pause, the young man's voice echoed again. "I know you're listening." The middle-aged man leisurely walked over to Mr. took the walkie-talkie from his hand, pressed the button and spoke calmly. "Hello, Shallow Feather Chie? Should I call you Mr. or the young master of the Hanchuan family Hanchuan sure?" The middle-aged man's eyes narrowed slightly. Yamazaki Bridge. At the edge of the burning bridge, Lin Chia held a walkie-talkie, his gaze fixed on the distance, his black trench coat fluttering gently in the wind. "It seems the trash on the bridge is all dead," came the voice of Hanchuan Sure from the walkie-talkie. "What do you want with the walkie-talkie? Declare war? Provocation? Or announce the claim to the Yuzuriha family's descendant? Want us to give up early?" Lin Chia paused for a moment, his mind racing. "That's right." He spoke calmly. "I just want to tell you that Yuzuriha now and everything she possesses are mine. If you want to meddle further, bring as many as you like and I'll kill as many as you send." There was a pause on the other end of the walkie-talkie, and Hanchuan Shure's voice gradually turned cold. "Although I don't know who you are, if you want to monopolize the latent royal blood and the whereabouts of that sword, your appetite is too big, be careful not to choke on it." Latent royal blood. That sword? Lin Chia's probing successfully extracted crucial information from Hanchuan Shure, and although he didn't know what these two referred to, he at least had a lead. As one of the two major gang families in the Kanto region, for Hanchuan Shure to say, "Be careful not to choke on it," indicated that the two items Yuzuriha now possessed were indeed significant. After pondering for a moment, Lin Chia sneered. "Do you think I would be afraid?" Chapter 623. The Blade That Cuts Bridges. Lin Chia finished speaking, crushing the intercom in his hand, and gently opened his palm, letting the fragments drift away with the wind. He had already extracted two items from Hanchuan Si regarding Yuli Nai. If he continued to probe, he would expose the fact that he actually knew nothing. After saying this, Lin Chia could basically guess what the other side wanted to say. It was nothing more than threats or harsh words. Lin Chia didn't have time to listen to such nonsense. Thus, the police cars were already on the bridge. The wailing of sirens mixed with the roar of engines was rapidly approaching, about 20 or more vehicles. He could even clearly hear the loudspeakers on the police cars issuing warnings for him to stand still and give up resistance. Lin Chia lowered his head and took out a Sun Wukong mask from his pocket, putting it on his face. He turned around at the edge of the bridge, facing the rapidly approaching Japanese police, holding two black boxes. The Sun Wukong mask revealed a fierce and menacing expression under the sunlight. "Hey!" Mumu bounced over to his side, climbing onto his back like a mummy doll backpack, its hollow eyes curiously surveying the police cars that were gradually surrounding them, tilting its head slightly as if asking Lin Chia whether they should take them all down. "No need, let's go," Lin Chia said calmly from beneath the mask. He took a step back, stepping onto the edge of the bridge holding the two black boxes. In the gaze of all the Japanese police, he gently leaned backward. His figure fell from the Yamasaki Bridge, plunging into the rushing river below, disappearing without a trace. At that moment, an enormous black blade suddenly descended from the sky, like a skyscraper, crashing heavily onto the Yamasaki Bridge. This bridge, standing over the Yadagawa River for decades, was as fragile as a toy made of building blocks under the massive blade, easily severed in the middle. The many Japanese police gathered on the bridge had not yet reacted to what had happened when they were cut into pieces by this strike. The bridge collapsed and the surviving Japanese police and police cars all fell into the roaring Yadagawa River, countless stones crashing down, creating utter chaos. After severing the Yamasaki Bridge, the enormous blade showed no signs of stopping, directly slicing into the surging Yadagawa River, the white waves it stirred up flying like a tsunami, crashing onto the streets on either side. Having already jumped into the Yadagawa River, Lin Chia clearly saw the descending massive blade through his mental power, his pupils constricting. Without a second thought, he took out two straight swords from the black boxes, swiftly turning in the water to face the blade that had plunged into the water, crossing the swords in front of him. Clay! The massive blade collided with Lin Chia's two swords in the water, the terrifying kinetic energy transferring into Lin Chia's body. His figure had no point of support in the water and could only be rapidly forced down to the riverbed by the strike. Mumu, pressed against Lin Chia's back, seemed eager to help, but in the water most of its firearms could not be used normally, leaving it only able to stare anxiously. Lin Chia bore the weight of the massive blade, his body rapidly descending to the bottom of the Yadagawa River. With the terrifying power of the blade, it was difficult for Lin Chia to resist without using the forbidden ruins. He quickly made a decision in his heart. A burst of magical light erupted from his eyes. Mumu was summoned back to its original world, and at the same time, a veil of night covered Lin Chia's body, causing him to vanish in an instant. Night flicker. In the Ghostfire nightclub. In a luxurious private room, Han Chuanxi slowly withdrew the black blade from the map in his hand. On the Osaka map laid out on the floor, a shocking blade mark pierced through the surface at the location of the Yamasaki Bridge, even shattering the glass tabletop beneath the map. Han Chuanxi expressionlessly sheathed the black blade, picked up a champagne bottle nearby and sat back down on the sofa. Mr. Jing stood beside him, looking at the map with the punctured Yamasaki Bridge, tentatively asking, "Young master, has the blade master been killed?" "Probably not." Han Chuanxi replied, "The blade master is not that fragile. This is just a warning I gave him." Mr. Jing nodded. "I will send people to search for his traces near the Yadagawa River and simultaneously track the descendants of the Yuli family. Once we find their whereabouts, I will notify you immediately." Han Chuanxi nodded at Mr. Jing, who then left the room. Somewhere in Osaka. In a vast traditional Japanese courtyard, a figure dressed in a black-patterned kimono sat quietly cross-legged at a low table. It was a man with graying temples, appearing to be around 50 years old, with a hideous scar on his forehead. Although his eyes were closed and his expression calm, he exuded an aura of dominance, truly embodying the essence of unspoken authority. Opposite him, a beautiful young woman in a bright kimono knelt carefully, brewing tea. The fragrance of Japanese tea wafted through the courtyard, and after a while, a cup of clear tea was gently pushed in front of him. The beautiful woman then quietly knelt beside him, motionless like a statue. The man with graying temples slightly opened his eyes. His name was Asakura Ken, the leader of the Yamamoto group under the Black Kill Group. Unlike the two major Yakuza families in Kanto, the Black Kill Group was formed by merging various separate Yakuza factions. The leader of the Black Kill Group was the supreme commander, overseeing numerous large Yakuza factions, with the Yamamoto Group being one of them. Asakura Ken was the leader of the Yamamoto Group and a senior official of the Black Kill Group. In Yakuza terms, he served as the deputy head of the Black Kill Group, effectively acting as the leader of the Osaka division. In Osaka, he represented the will of the Black Kill Group. And in the Kansai region, the will of the Black Kill Group represented the will of the entire Yakuza. "Boss, the people from the Hanchuan family have made their move again." A man walked in from outside, bowing deeply to Asakura Ken. "Speak." "They have taken out several small gangs in Osaka, taking over their businesses, territory and manpower, seemingly trying to establish a long-term foothold here. We just received news that the Ghostfire Society has also been wiped out by them." Upon hearing this, Asakura Ken paused with the teacup in his hand, a sharp killing intent flashing in his eyes. "The dogs from Kanto think they can run wild in Kansai?" he said light. "However, what's strange is that today, some of the Hanchuan family's personnel were killed by a mysterious person on the Yamasaki Bridge, blowing up over a dozen cars. Later, a black blade fell from the sky, slicing the entire bridge in two, and many police officers were also killed or injured. It seems that the one from the Hanchuan family came in person." Hearing this, Asakura Ken's expression darkened. If the one from the Hanchuan family came in person, then things could get troublesome. After a moment of hesitation, he slowly set down the cup in his hand and said, "Prepare the car. I need to go to Kyoto to meet the Grand Leader." Chapter 624. Siblings. Late at night. The waters of the Yadagawa River flowed swiftly along the riverbed, with only a few hurried pedestrians on the streets on either side, seemingly rushing home. At that moment, in a shadowy corner of the riverbank, a hand suddenly emerged from the turbulent waters, grasping a protruding brick. Following that, a figure leaped out of the river, using the momentum to land steadily on the shore with a soft splash. Soaked to the skin, Lin Chia stood in the darkness, water dripping from the hem of his trench coat. He placed a black box on the ground and removed the Sun Wukong mask from his face, letting out a long breath. Under the Yamasaki Bridge, after that massive blade fell, he had directly used Night Flicker to teleport 2 kilometers away into the river. Under the gaze of that mysterious presence, he remained motionless like a stiff stone, drifting along the Yadagawa for quite some time. At the moment he used Night Flicker, he had intended to teleport directly to the banks, but upon reflection he realized he didn't know the attacker's location and was unfamiliar with the surrounding environment. If he recklessly returned to the shore and was found by the enemy during the 1-2-3 Wooden Man period, he would be in danger. Thus, he preferred to drift in the river rather than return to the shore, as at least in the water, all traces of him could be well concealed. Lin Chia looked around, completely unaware of his current location in Osaka. After hesitating for a moment, he stepped toward a passerby not far away. "Excuse me, could you tell me how to get to Dotonbori?" The passerby was taken aback upon seeing the drenched Lin Chia but politely pointed out a route. Lin Chia's immediate priority was to reunite with Yuzuna, who had scattered away. He had given all his money to the taxi driver, so taking a cab was out of the question. Fortunately, Dotonbori wasn't too far away, and he could reach it quickly even on foot. As Lin Chia walked, he recalled the blade that had fallen from the sky. That strike was certainly not something an ordinary person could achieve. If it were a harbinger, the attacker should have revealed themselves in front of him to accept worship. Considering that black blade, Lin Chia speculated that the assailant was likely one of the wielders of the Kazutsuki blade. The attacker's intent was also clear: to kill him. However, at the moment that blade descended, he hadn't detected any suspicious individuals within his mental perception range. Perhaps the Kazutsuki blade could exert its power over an extremely long distance? Who was the person who struck at him? Lin Chia pondered, realizing that the only one he had enmity with on the Yamasaki Bridge seemed to be Kanagawa Tsukasa. This young master of the Kanagawa family was also a wielder of the Kazutsuki blade. After a long while, Lin Chia finally arrived at the entrance of Dotonbori. Even though it was late at night, this street filled with modern vibes appeared bustling. Although there weren't many pedestrians, the dense neon signs on both sides still illuminated the dark night sky, dazzling the eyes. Lin Chia scanned the surroundings with his mental power and then turned to walk in a certain direction. Beside the brightly lit street, a narrow alley twisted and turned. Even the brilliant neon lights couldn't reach this dark and narrow path, which seemed like a neglected shadow of the street, existing alone in the darkness. In the corner of this alley, a little girl wearing an old cherry blossom kimono curled up next to a trash can, burying her head in her knees, seemingly asleep. A helpless smile appeared on Lin Chia's lips as he gently nudged the little girl. "Yuzuna, wake up." Yuzuna jolted awake like a frightened kitten, instinctively shrinking back, crossing her arms in front of her to protect herself. When she saw the person in front of her, she was momentarily stunned, then pursed her lips, opened her arms and hugged Lin Chia tightly, her eyes slightly red. "Brother Chia, I thought you wouldn't come back." Her soft voice carried a hint of a sob as it reached Lin Chia's ears. "I ran into some trouble, but it's all resolved now." "Did you get hurt?" "No." "That's good." Yuzuna nodded. "I listened to you and hid from the surveillance, coming here to wait. I didn't go anywhere." "Did anyone find you?" "Not on the way here, but while I was hiding there was an uncle who saw me and thought I looked pitiful. He wanted me to go to his shop to eat something, but I didn't go." "Are you hungry?" "Hungry." Yuzuna spoke softly, "But it's okay, I'm used to it. Don't look at me as if I'm small. I can handle hunger." Feeling the warmth radiating from Yuzuna's small body, Lin Chia felt a pang of heartache. This child's life is too hard. Yuzuna noticed Lin Chia was wet and sniffed the air, looking up in confusion. "Did you take a bath in the stinky ditch?" "Lin Chia." Lin Chia stood up and glanced around. "Let's go. I'll take you to eat first. I haven't had the Kobe beef I promised you yet." Yuzuna blinked. "Do you still have money?" "No." "Then are you going to take me to eat without paying?" Lin Chia scratched his head, about to say something when a figure suddenly appeared at the entrance of the alley. How did another one show up? It was a middle-aged man in a black sequin suit, stepping in shiny leather shoes. His neatly combed black hair was slicked back, reflecting the neon signs from the street. A red rose was tucked into the pocket of his sequined suit, making him look flashy and gaudy. He elegantly held a tray in his hand, which contained a bowl of miso soup and a steaming plate of pork cutlet rice. "If there are two of you, it might not be enough to eat." The man scratched his head, looking a bit troubled. Lin Chia turned to look at Yuzuna in confusion. "He's the uncle who wanted me to go to his shop to eat before." Yuzuna recognized him immediately and said, "Little girl, who is he to you?" The man scrutinized Lin Chia, who was drenched and wearing a black trench coat, with a cold expression, and asked curiously. Yuzuna thought for a moment. "He's my brother." "Oh, so the reason you didn't want to go to my shop to eat before was that you were waiting for your brother." The man's expression changed to one of realization. He turned to Lin Chia, speaking somewhat displeased. "Hey, you as her brother, how can you not take care of your sister? I see she's been squatting here all afternoon. Poor little girl." Lin Chia's expression turned a bit awkward. The man looked at the drenched Lin Chia and then at the ragged Yuzuna, letting out a helpless sigh. "You two, if you don't have money to eat, just come to my shop and eat something. There are still plenty of ingredients left in the kitchen today, and it would be a waste to throw them away. I won't charge you." Chapter 625. You were born for the cowherd profession. Lin Chia and Yulina exchanged a glance, and after a moment they nodded. They had no money on them and looked like beggars. Where could they go for a meal in the middle of the night? Even if there were places still open, they couldn't just walk in and eat without paying, could they? Not to mention setting a bad example for Yulina. Lin Chia, the captain of the 5th Special Team of the Great Xia Night Watch, a disciple of the Sword Saint, would lose face if word got out that he ate without paying in Japan. If it were just Lin Chia, he definitely wouldn't go out to eat. After all, with his current physique, he wouldn't get hungry so quickly. But Yulina was still a child and she needed to eat. Seeing Lin Chia nod in agreement, the uncle turned and walked toward the brightly lit street. "Come along." Lin Chia and Yulina followed him, walking past the main street of Dotonbori. Yulina looked around at the bustling and vibrant shops, her big eyes filled with surprise and curiosity. The three of them turned down several streets, gradually leaving the bustling main road, and finally stopped in front of a 2-story shop on a relatively secluded corner. The shop was not small and the decor was decent, but the foot traffic was sparse, making it feel particularly deserted. Lin Chia looked up at the flickering neon sign, his brow slightly raised. Black Phoenix Club. The moment Yulina saw the sign, she seemed to realize something, and her expression suddenly stiffened. In contrast, Lin Chia felt nothing about the name of the shop. He stepped through the elegantly decorated entrance, walked up the blue-black illuminated staircase to the 2nd floor. Yulina gritted her teeth and followed him up. The 2nd floor was a black and gold-themed bar and restaurant, with seemingly independent private rooms, but there were no customers at all. The huge floor-to-ceiling windows next to the restaurant faced the busiest main street, and under the pitch-black sky, the dazzling neon lights cast a unique charm on the restaurant walls. "Hello." As soon as they reached the 2nd floor, a young man in a white shirt respectfully bowed, his golden hair particularly striking in the dim light. "Xiaojin, these two are not customers. They are a pair of siblings who ran away from home. I brought them back to eat something." The uncle waved his hand and said, "Is there still food in the kitchen?" Xiaojin was taken aback. "Yes. I'll go make another serving of rice. You find them a place to sit." No, you take that sister to find a place to sit, and then take the brother to the back room to wash up and change into clean clothes." The uncle saw Lin Chia, who was still dripping wet, and felt a bit sorry for his floor, speaking to Xiaojin. "Wash up." Lin Chia was taken aback. "What kind of restaurant is this? Why is there a washing room?" Yulina's expression became subtle. "Don't misunderstand, we are a legitimate establishment." The uncle noticed the confusion in Lin Chia's eyes and explained, "Because sometimes customers drink too much and vomit on us. To avoid affecting the experience of other customers, we specially prepared a washing room." Lin Chia nodded thoughtfully. To be honest, this bar really pays attention to details. But why would customers vomit on them after drinking too much? Xiaojin found a window-side seat for Yulina and then led Lin Chia through several private rooms to the innermost small room, saying, "Wash up in here. Our body types are similar. I'll go get you some dry clothes to wear." "Thank you." Lin Chia opened the door and walked into the bathroom, He wasn't worried about these two doing anything sneaky while he was gone. After all, his spiritual power had already covered the entire establishment, keeping a constant watch on their movements. Even if they had any malicious intent, Lin Chia could react immediately. He quickly rinsed off, removing all the odors from the river water, then took the red shirt and sequined suit jacket that Xiao Jin handed him and put them on. As Xiao Jin said, their body types were indeed similar and the clothes fit well. But Lin Chia didn't know why. Looking at himself in the mirror, he always felt something was off. Lin Chia shook his head and pushed the door open. Xiao Jin, who was waiting outside, was about to say something, but upon seeing Lin Chia he froze in place. At this moment the uncle had already prepared another serving of pork chop rice and placed it on the table, while Yulina sat in front of her pork chop rice, staring intently at the fragrant dish, swallowing repeatedly. "Little girl, why aren't you eating? If you don't eat soon it'll get cold," the uncle asked, puzzled by Yulina's demeanor. Yulina shook her head. "I'll eat when my brother comes." Yulina was very hungry, but she controlled her urge to eat, sitting upright because she wasn't sure if these two had put anything in the food. She didn't trust them, she only trusted Lin Chia. Only when Lin Chia told her it was okay to eat would she eat. Lin Chia's footsteps approached from the side. The uncle turned his head, ready to say something, but upon seeing Lin Chia he was momentarily stunned, his mind going blank. Now Lin Chia had washed off the dirt on his face, revealing his handsome and cool features. The fitted sequined suit jacket perfectly accentuated his well-proportioned figure, long yet powerful, making it hard for people to look away. What was most striking was the slightly damp black hair falling beside his eyes, his deep gaze holding a glimmer of light, exuding an inexplicable noble aura, like a lofty emperor, transcendent and ethereal. Under the influence of the essence of the night, Lin Chia himself didn't realize that his aura was slowly approaching that of Nyx. Of course, this wasn't about becoming feminine, but rather a closeness in temperament. The uncle stared at Lin Chia for a long time before coming back to his senses, his eyes filled with unprecedented shock. "Incredible," he shook his head slightly as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Appearance, temperament, charm. There really are people like you. You are a genius, an absolute genius." "Genius?" Lin Chia was somewhat baffled. "What are you talking about? You are a once-in-a-decade genius in the host industry." The uncle quickly stepped forward, grabbing Lin Chia's wrist, excitedly saying, "I never expected that one day I would see such a genius standing in front of me. Young man, you must stay. If you leave, it will be the most painful loss for the host industry in nearly a decade. Everything about you is perfect. You are simply born for the host industry. I can already foresee that a dazzling new star in the host industry is rising."